Since Soviet troops pulled out of Afghanistan, 14,000 Russians and more than 1 million Afghans were killed in a 9-year war. But this prize did not buy peace for Afghanistan.
To be fair, we had helped to create the problem we're now fighting.
How?
Because when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, we had this brilliant idea that we were going to come to Pakistan and create a force of mujahideen, equip them with Stinger missiles and everything else to go after the Soviets inside Afghanistan. And we were successful. The Soviets left Afghanistan, and then we said, great, goodbye, leaving these trained people who were fanatical in Afghanistan and Pakistan, leaving them well armed, creating a mess, frankly, that at the time we didn't really recognize. We were just so happy to see the Soviet Union fall, and we thought, okay, fine, we're okay now, everything's going to be so much better. Now you look back, the people we're fighting today, we were supporting in the fight against the Soviets.
Operation Cyclone was one of the longest and most expensive covert operations ever undertaken, costing the CIA, which is a combination of taxpayer and other undisclosed money, between $3 and $20 billion, not mentioning Allied investment from Saudi Arabia. It was during this contribution from Saudi Arabia that Osama bin Laden came onto the scene. Osama was the wealthy heir to the renowned bin Laden family construction fortune, and with CIA support, he financed the Saudi wing of the operation, where other Muslims from further afield came to aid the struggles in Afghanistan. The CIA ensured bin Laden's recruits were just as well equipped as the indigenous Afghans. They allowed the militants to buy weapons on the black market at a fraction of the regular cost. To prevent media exposure and to keep a facade of innocence, the CIA funded bin Laden as a third party. Money went from Washington to the CIA to their allies in the Pakistani intelligence services, and it was then laundered through the front company, Afghan Services Bureau, founded by Abdullah Azzam and bin Laden himself. In fact, associates of the company toured the US with branches in Brooklyn and Arizona, taking donations from local Muslims and members of the public for what they were told was a freedom-fighting mission. By 1990, Soviet troops had withdrawn from Afghanistan, and eventually the visible threat of communism went underground. The West was one step closer to its vision of world order, with George Bush Sr., director of the CIA during Operation Cyclone, the most vocal proponent.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law. Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge. Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
I think even that does not describe
why the world has changed so much and why the world has turned so much toward a new world order and a new kind of civilization.
The CIA left the operation in the hands of what would become the Taliban, the remaining militants and farmers from Operation Cyclone. It is widely acknowledged that the US offered aid and some support to the Taliban up until 1998, just 3 years prior to 9/11. But former FBI translator turned whistleblower Sibel Edmonds claims that the US maintained intimate relations with bin Laden all the way up until the day of September the 11th itself.
I have information about things that our government has lied to our people, to us, not to me, because I know. For example, to say that, all right, since the fall of the Soviet Union, we ceased all our intimate relationship with bin Laden and Taliban, and those things can be proven as lies very easily based on the information they classified in my case, because we did carry very intimate relationship with these people, and it involves Central Asia and all the way up to September 11. I know you're going to say, oh my God, there were this, we went there and we bombed the medical factory in 1990s during Clinton. We declared them most wanted. And what I'm telling you is, with those groups, we had operations in Central Asia, and that relationship, using them as we did during the Afghan and Soviet conflict, we used them all the way until September 11th.
It is then understandable why some victim family members are outraged at America's own involvement in training, funding and arming the very terrorists that allegedly attacked America on that tragic day.
In the personal story segment tonight, we were surprised to find out that an American who lost his father in the World Trade Center attack had signed an anti-war advertisement that accused the USA itself of terrorism. I was surprised, and the reason I was surprised is that this ad equates the United States with the terrorists.
I said, I'm shocked that you're surprised, and basically just made the only point I wanted to make. Our current president now inherited a legacy from his father and inherited a political legacy that's responsible for training militarily, economically, and situating geopolitically the parties involved in the alleged assassination and murder of my father and countless of thousands of others. So I don't see why it's so surprising for you to think that I would come back and want to support
it is surprising, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why it's surprising. You are mouthing a far-left position. See, I'm sure your beliefs are sincere, but what upsets me is I don't think your father would be approving of this.
Well, actually, my father thought that Bush's presidency was illegitimate.
Maybe he did, but I don't think he'd be equating this country as a terrorist nation.
Well, I wasn't saying that it was necessarily like that. What I'm saying is that he said, oh, I don't really care what you think politically. And I said, obviously you do care, because A, you brought me on the show, and B, I told him that he uses 9/11 and sympathy with the 9/11 families and the lives lost to rationalize his narrow right-wing agenda. You evoke sympathy with the 9/11 families.
That's a bunch of crap.
So
I've done more for the 9/11 families, by their own admission. I've done more for them than you will ever hope to do. Okay. So you keep your mouth shut when you sit me exploiting those people.
You're not representing
and I never represent you. You know why?
Why?
Because you have a warped view of this world and a warped view of this country.
Well, explain that. Let me give you an example.
I'm not going to debate this with you.
Well, let me give you an example of parallel experiences. On September 14th.
Here's the record. Okay. All right. You didn't support the action against Afghanistan to remove the Taliban. You were against it.
Why would I want to brutalize and further punish the people in Afghanistan?
Who killed your father?
The people in Afghanistan didn't kill my father.
Sure they did. The Al-Qaeda people were trained there.
The Al-Qaeda people? What about the Afghanistan?
See, I'm more angry about it than you are.
So what about George Bush?
What about George Bush? He had nothing to do with it.
The director, senior, as director.
He had nothing to do with it.
So the people that trained 100,000 mujahideen who were extremists.
I hope your mom isn't watching this. I hope your mother is not watching this. Because you That's it. I'm not going to say any more.
Okay.
In respect for your father,
September
as a
14th,
porter,
you want to know what I was doing?
Shut up.
Please don't tell me to shut up.
In respect for your father, who was a Port Authority worker, a fine American, who got killed unnecessarily by barbarians.
By radical extremists trained by this government.
Respect
not
for
the
him,
people of America,
I'm not
the people, the ruling class, the small minority.
Cut his mic. I'm not going to dress you down anymore, out of respect for your father.
The term Al-Qaeda, which means the base, simply refers to the camp or base where the Bin Laden and CIA-funded Islamists were trained and armed. Following the 7/7 bombings, Robin Cook, who resigned in support of the public's negative view of the war in Iraq, went a step further and claimed in an article for The Guardian that Al-Qaeda didn't just mean base, but literally meant the CIA database containing the names and details of those involved in Operation Cyclone.